The snowflakes struck Sophia Easton's face like frozen needles as she stumbled through the white darkness. Her thin traveling dress already soaked through and clinging to her shivering body. But she refused to stop running, because anything was better than marrying a man she had never met. She had arrived in Westcliff, Colorado, just 3 hours earlier on the afternoon train, her heart pounding with equal parts hope and terror. The journey from Boston had taken nearly a week, and every mile westward had felt like a mile further from everything she had ever known. Her mother had died 6 months ago, leaving Sophia alone with debts she could never repay on a seamstress's wages. The advertisement had seemed like Providence at the time, a rancher seeking a bride, promising a home and security. But now, having glimpsed Xander Harrison through the frosted window of the general store where she was supposed to wait for him, she had panicked. He was not what she expected. Too tall, too broad-shouldered, too rugged, with that weather-beaten face and those piercing eyes that seemed to see straight through to her soul. When he had tied his horse outside and started walking toward the store, Sophia had felt something unfamiliar and frightening stir in her chest. It was not repulsion, but rather an intensity that terrified her more than indifference ever could. So she had done the only thing her fear-addled mind could conceive. She slipped out the back door and ran. The December wind howled through the mountains, and Sophia could barely see 5 feet ahead. She had no coat, no supplies, no idea where she was going. The town had disappeared behind her within minutes, swallowed by the storm that had rolled in from the peaks with terrifying speed. Her shoes, meant for city streets, provided no traction on the accumulating snow. She fell twice, her hands burning with cold as she pushed herself up each time. This was foolish, she gasped to herself, her breath forming white clouds that disappeared instantly. So incredibly foolish. But she kept moving because stopping meant admitting defeat, meant returning to face the man who had paid for her travel, who expected a wife, who deserved better than a coward who ran at the first sight of him. Tears froze on her cheeks. Her fingers had gone numb, and she could no longer feel her toes. The light was fading fast, and Sophia realized with growing horror that she might die out here, frozen in the Colorado wilderness, because she was too afraid to face a future she had chosen herself. Behind her, though she could not hear it over the wind, Xander Harrison had discovered her absence. The storekeeper, old Mrs. Patterson, had been apologetic and confused. "She was just here, Mr. Harrison. Such a pretty young thing, looked nervous as a cat. She asked to use the necessary, and I pointed her to the back. I assumed she would return, but—" Xander had not waited to hear more. He knew the storm, had grown up in these mountains, and understood with cold certainty that a woman from back east would not survive an hour in this weather. He was angry, frustrated, but mostly terrified. He had sent that advertisement half on a dare from his foreman, never expecting the articulate, intelligent letters he received in response from Sophia Easton. Her words had touched something in him he thought long dead, killed by loneliness and hard work, and too many years alone on his ranch. He grabbed his heavy coat and ran to his horse, a sturdy bay gelding named Copper who had weathered worse storms than this. "Come on, boy," Xander muttered, swinging into the saddle. "We have got a foolish woman to find before this mountain kills her." The tracks were already filling with fresh snow, but Xander could read the land like other men read books. She had headed west, away from town, climbing into the foothills. What had she been thinking? Did she imagine she could walk back to Boston? Did she think there was another town nearby? Westcliff was isolated, surrounded by the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, beautiful but deadly to those who did not respect them. He urged Copper forward, leaning low against the wind. His eyes scanned the white landscape, searching for any hint of movement, any splash of color against the snow. The temperature was dropping fast. Once the sun set fully, it would plummet below zero. Frostbite would set in quickly, then hypothermia. He had seen men die of exposure, had found their frozen bodies after winter storms. The thought of finding Sophia that way made his chest constrict painfully. "Sophia," he called, though the wind stole his voice. "Sophia Easton." Sophia heard nothing but the shrieking wind. She had stopped running, was now merely stumbling forward, her body shaking so violently she could barely walk. Her mind was growing foggy, thoughts coming slower. She knew this was bad, knew she needed shelter, needed warmth, but the world had become nothing but white and cold and endless. "Should not have run," she mumbled through numb lips. "So stupid. Mother would have been so disappointed." Her knees buckled, and this time when she fell, she was not sure she could get up. The snow was soft here, almost inviting. Perhaps if she just rested for a moment, caught her breath, gathered her strength. Yes, just a moment. She was curling into herself when she heard something that penetrated the storm's roar, a voice, deep and urgent, calling her name. Sophia tried to respond, but her voice came out as barely a whisper. She tried again, forcing air through her frozen throat. "Here," she croaked. "I am here." Xander saw her, a dark shape against the snow, and his heart lurched. He was off Copper in seconds, dropping to his knees beside her. She was conscious but barely, her lips blue, her skin dangerously pale. Ice crystals clung to her eyelashes. "Sophia," he said, his voice rough with relief and fear. "I found you. Cold," she whispered. "So cold. I know, I am going to get you warm." He was already stripping off his heavy coat, wrapping it around her. It swallowed her small frame. She was tiny compared to him, delicate in a way that made him want to protect her from everything, including her own reckless decisions. "No," she protested weakly. "You will freeze." "I am built for this weather. You are not." He lifted her easily, cradling her against his chest. She weighed almost nothing. How had someone so small thought she could survive this storm? "We need to get you back to town." "Please," Sophia said, her frozen hand clutching weakly at his shirt. "Please do not make me go back. I will leave in the morning, I promise. I will repay what you spent. Just please, I cannot." "Hush," Xander said, settling her onto Copper's saddle before swinging up behind her. He pulled her back against his chest, wrapping one arm around her waist to hold her secure, using his body to shield her from the wind. "We will talk about all of that when you are not dying of exposure. Right now, just stay awake. Can you do that for me?" "I will try," Sophia said, though her eyes kept trying to close. The warmth of his body against her back was the most wonderful thing she had ever felt. Despite everything, despite her fear and shame, she found herself leaning into him, seeking more of that vital heat. Xander turned Copper back toward town, letting the horse pick his way carefully down the slope. He kept talking, knowing he needed to keep Sophia conscious. "My ranch is about 5 miles from town. I run cattle, have about 200 head right now. Built the house myself 6 years ago when I bought the land. It has a good stone fireplace, keeps the place warm even in the worst storms." "Why?" Sophia asked, her voice slightly stronger. "Why did you want a mail-order bride?" Xander was quiet for a moment, navigating Copper around a fallen tree. "Loneliness, I suppose. The work is hard, the days are long. I would come in after 14 hours of riding fence or birthing calves, and the house would be empty and cold. It started to feel less like a home and more like just a place to sleep." He paused. "And I liked your letters. You wrote about your mother, about the books you read to her when she was ill, about how you loved watching the sunset from your window. You made Boston sound beautiful, even though I know it is nothing but brick and smoke." Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. though they would not fall, her body too dehydrated and cold. "Your letters made Colorado sound like a dream. You wrote about the mountains at dawn, about how the snow on the peaks turns pink in the morning light, about the stars at night, so many you could never count them all." "It is all true," Xander said. "I do not know how to lie, especially not in writing. Everything I told you was real." "Then why did I run?" Sophia asked, more to herself than him. "That is what I would like to know," Xander said, and she could hear the hurt beneath the gruffness in his voice. "Did I frighten you? I know I am not much to look at and I probably smell like horse and leather, but I would never hurt you. I swear that on anything you want me to swear on." "No," Sophia said quickly. "No, it was not that. You did not frighten me, or rather you did, but not in the way you think." "Then what way?" Sophia was quiet, trying to find words for the panic that had seized her. "I looked at you through that window and you were so real. Not words on a page, not an idea, but a real man with real expectations. And suddenly, it all became real too. The fact that I had agreed to marry a stranger. That I would live in a place I had never seen. That I had sold myself because I was too weak to find another way." Her voice broke. "I am a coward." "No," Xander said firmly. "A coward would have stayed in Boston, would have let the debts destroy her, would have taken the easy path. Coming out here, leaving everything you knew, that took courage. Getting scared when it became real. That is just being human." The lights of Westcliff appeared through the snow, warm and welcoming. Sophia had never been so relieved to see civilization. Her body was still shaking, but the violent tremors had subsided somewhat, replaced by a deep, aching cold that seemed to have settled into her bones. Xander guided Copper directly to Dr. Emmett's house, the white clapboard building that served as both home and surgery. He dismounted and pulled Sophia down, carrying her up the porch steps. The door opened before he could knock, revealing a thin man with graying hair and sharp eyes that immediately assessed the situation. "Exposure?" Dr. Emmett asked. "Yes, sir. Been out in the storm for close to an hour, maybe more. Get her inside by the fire." The doctor stood aside, and Xander carried Sophia into a warm room where a fire blazed in the hearth. "Set her in that chair, close as you dare to the flames. Mrs. Emmett," he called. "Bring blankets and hot water bottles." A plump woman with kind eyes appeared, her arms already full of quilts. Together, she and the doctor began the work of warming Sophia gradually. Xander stood back, feeling helpless and useless as they stripped off her wet dress behind a screen and wrapped her in dry blankets, piled the quilts around her, and pressed warmed stones wrapped in cloth against her feet and hands. "You did good, bringing her straight here," Dr. Emmett said to Xander. "Another half hour and we would be dealing with serious frostbite, maybe worse." "Will she be all right?" "I believe so, yes. She is young and strong. The cold did not get its claws too deep." The doctor studied Xander's face. "You must be Harrison. Heard you were expecting a bride today." "Yes, sir." "Well, she clearly has some reservations about the arrangement." Xander's jaw tightened. "Seems that way. What do you intend to do about it?" "I do not know yet," Xander admitted. "I have never had a woman run away from me before. Usually they just say no to my face." Dr. Emmett chuckled. "At least she keeps life interesting. My advice, give her time. Coming west is a shock, especially for a city girl. And marriage to a stranger is no small thing, whatever the circumstances." Mrs. Emmett emerged from behind the screen. "She is warming up nicely. Color is coming back to her cheeks. I have given her some hot tea with honey. She should stay here tonight, though. I want to monitor her, make sure no complications develop." "Of course," Xander said. "Whatever she needs, I will pay for everything." "Already paid for, I expect," Mrs. Emmett said gently. "You paid her way here." That makes her your responsibility in the eyes of the law, whether she marries you or not." Xander nodded. It was true. Sophia had signed a contract. If she refused to marry him, she owed him the cost of her travel, her room and board until she could make other arrangements. But the thought of forcing her into anything made him sick. His father had been a hard man, quick with his fists and cruel with his words. Xander had sworn he would never be like that, would never use his size or strength to intimidate anyone, especially not a woman. "Can I see her?" he asked, Mrs. Emmett hesitated, then nodded. Briefly. "She needs rest." Xander moved to the chair by the fire. Sophia looked small and lost beneath the pile of quilts, her dark hair drying in waves around her pale face. Her eyes, he noticed for the first time, were a striking gray-green, the color of sage after rain. They watched him warily as he approached. "How are you feeling?" he asked, keeping his distance, not wanting to crowd her. "Foolish," Sophia said quietly, "and ashamed, and grateful. You saved my life. I ran away from you and you risked yourself in that storm to save me." "You are my responsibility," Xander said, then winced at how that sounded. "I do not mean it like I own you or anything. I just mean I brought you here. It was my advertisement you answered." "That makes your welfare my concern." "I will find a way to repay you," Sophia said, "for everything. The travel, the doctor, all of it. It may take time, but I will. I do not care about the money." Xander pulled a chair over and sat, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "What I care about is understanding what happened. Sophia, if you did not want to come, you could have written and said so. I would have been disappointed, but I would have understood. Why come all this way just to run?" Sophia looked into the fire, watching the flames dance. "I did not decide to run until I saw you. Until that moment, I was determined to go through with it. I was telling myself it would be fine, that people married for practical reasons all the time, that love was a luxury I could not afford." She took a shaky breath. "But then I saw you and you were not what I imagined. You looked kind. Strong but kind. And I realized you would expect me to be a real wife, not just someone to cook and clean. You would expect intimacy, companionship, maybe eventually affection. And that terrified me because I did not know if I could give that to a stranger." Xander absorbed this, understanding dawning. "You thought I would force myself on you." "No," Sophia said quickly. "Not force. But expect, yes. It is a husband's right after all." "Right," Xander said slowly, "is a word men use when they want something they have not earned. I will not lie to you, Sophia. I hoped for a real marriage eventually. Hoped that over time we might grow to care for each other, maybe even love each other. But I would never expect you to share my bed until you wanted to. If that took months or years or never happened at all, that would be your choice. I want a wife, not a prisoner." Sophia turned to look at him fully, searching his face. "You mean that?" "I do not say things I do not mean." They sat in silence for a moment, the fire crackling between them. Finally, Sophia spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I do not know if I can be what you need." "I do not know if I can be what you need either," Xander replied honestly. "But I thought maybe we could figure it out together. That is what the letters were for, was it not? To see if we might suit each other." "The letters were easy," Sophia said. "I could think about what to write, could present the best version of myself. Real life is messier." "It is," Xander agreed, "but it is also more honest. Paper Sophia might be polished, but real Sophia has courage. She traveled across the country alone. She risked everything for a chance at a better life. That woman is worth 10 of the timid creatures who never dare to try. That woman also panicked and nearly got herself killed. That woman made a mistake, one that anyone might make when scared and overwhelmed. It does not erase the brave thing she did by coming here in the first place." Sophia felt something loosen in her chest, some tight knot of fear and self-loathing beginning to unwind. "Why are you being so kind to me? I have caused you nothing but trouble." "Because I believe you deserve kindness," Xander said simply. "And because I know what it is like to be afraid. I sent that advertisement 6 months ago but could not bring myself to mail it for weeks. I must have walked to the post office a dozen times before I finally put it in the box. I was terrified no one would answer, more terrified that someone would. But why? You are established here. You have a home, a ranch. What did you have to be afraid of? Rejection, mostly. Failing at something that matters. My father always said I would end up alone because I was too soft, too unwilling to take what I wanted. Part of me feared he was right." Xander looked at his hands, rough and scarred from years of hard work. "And part of me was afraid I would end up like him, hard and mean and angry at the world. A wife, a family, those felt like insurance against that future. But that is not fair to you, making you responsible for saving me from becoming something I hate. It is not fair to either of us," Sophia said slowly, making this just about fear. "Fear of being alone, fear of being trapped, fear of turning into someone we do not want to be." "No," Xander agreed. "It is not fair. We both deserve better than that." "So what do we do?" Xander stood, settling his hat back on his head. "Tonight you rest and get warm. Tomorrow, if you are well enough, we talk properly. Figure out what you want, what I want, if there is any way those things might align. And if they do not, if you still want to leave, I will pay for your ticket back to Boston. No debt, no obligation. You will go home free and clear." Sophia stared at him. "You would do that? Just let me leave." "I want a wife who wants to be here," Xander said. "Not one who stays out of obligation or fear. So yes, if that is what you choose, I will let you leave. But I hope you will give me a chance first. Give us a chance." He left before she could respond, tipping his hat to Mrs. Emmett on his way out. The cold night air was a shock after the warmth of the doctor's house. Xander stood on the porch for a moment, letting the snow fall on his face, trying to sort through the tangle of emotions in his chest. He had meant what he said. If Sophia wanted to leave, he would let her. But God, he hoped she would stay. Not just because he had invested money and time in this arrangement, but because of something he had seen in her eyes when she looked at him. Something beyond fear, a spark of curiosity, maybe even interest. He wanted the chance to see what that spark might become, given time and patience and care. Copper was waiting patiently, snow accumulating on his back. Xander brushed it off and swung into the saddle. "Come on, boy, let us go home. Long day tomorrow." The ride back to the ranch was cold and dark, but Xander barely noticed. His mind was full of gray-green eyes and a voice that shook with cold and fear, and something that might have been hope. He reached the ranch house just before midnight, took care of Copper, and fell into bed without bothering to eat. Sleep came slowly, and when it did, it was filled with dreams of a small woman with dark hair, running through snow that never seemed to end. Sophia slept fitfully, waking every few hours to find Mrs. Emmett checking on her, adding more blankets or stoking the fire. Each time, the older woman smiled and told her to rest, that all was well. But Sophia's mind would not quiet. She kept replaying the conversation with Xander, his words echoing in her head. He had been so honest, so willing to admit his own fears. It was not what she expected from a Western rancher. The men in her limited experience were either weak like her father, who drank himself to death when the world became too hard, or overbearing like her former employer, who thought his money gave him the right to corner her in the stockroom and press his wet mouth against hers. Xander seemed different. He was clearly strong both physically and in character, but that strength did not feel threatening. It felt protective, reliable, like a sturdy roof in a storm or a fire on a cold night, something you could depend on without fear of it collapsing or consuming you. But could she trust that impression? She had only spoken to him once, only spent an hour in his presence. People could hide their true natures for months, could not they? Her mother had always said her father was charming before they married, attentive and sweet. It was only after the wedding that the drinking started, the long absences, the eventual abandonment. Yet something in her wanted to trust Xander, wanted to believe that the kindness in his letters was real, that the gentleness in his voice tonight was genuine. And more than that, something in her wanted to stay, to see those mountains at dawn he had written about, to watch the sunset from the porch of a house she could call home. Morning came cold and clear, the storm having blown through during the night. Sophia woke to weak winter sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of bacon frying. Her body ached, and her fingers and toes tingled painfully as feeling returned fully. But she was alive and warm, and she realized with some surprise, hungry. Mrs. Emmett helped her dress in a borrowed gown, her traveling dress having been ruined by the snow and mud. "We are about the same size," the older woman said cheerfully, "though you are a bit shorter. The hem will drag, but it will do until we can get you something proper." "You are very kind," Sophia said. "I do not know how I will repay you for everything." "Nonsense. This is what neighbors do. Besides, your young man already left money for your care." Mrs. Emmett patted her shoulder. "He came by at dawn, wanted to check on you. I told him you were sleeping and sent him away, but he will be back. That man is smitten, whether he knows it yet or not." "He does not know me well enough to be smitten." "Maybe not, but he knows enough to risk his neck in a blizzard to save you. That counts for something." Mrs. Emmett led her to the kitchen where Dr. Emmett was reading the newspaper and eating eggs. "Sit, eat. You need to rebuild your strength." The food was simple but delicious, and Sophia ate more than she had in days. The anxiety that had knotted her stomach since leaving Boston had eased somewhat, replaced by a tentative sense of possibility. She was still afraid, still uncertain, but the paralyzing panic had faded. Maybe it was the near-death experience putting things in perspective. Death by freezing suddenly made marriage to a kind stranger seem less terrifying. Xander arrived mid-morning, his hat in his hands, his boots freshly cleaned. He looked tired, Sophia noticed, like he had not slept well. It made her feel guilty and also oddly touched that her situation had troubled him enough to cost him rest. "Miss Easton," he said formally, "I hope I am not intruding. I wanted to see how you were feeling." "Better," Sophia said, "thanks to you and the Emmets. I am afraid I have been nothing but a burden since I arrived." "Not a burden. A concern, maybe, but not a burden." Xander glanced at Dr. Emmett, who took the hint and excused himself, pulling his wife with him and leaving the two young people alone in the kitchen. Silence stretched between them, neither quite sure how to begin. Finally, Sophia spoke. "You said last night we should talk properly. I am ready for that if you are." "I am." Xander sat across from her, the kitchen table a safe distance between them. "I thought about this all night. About what to say, how to convince you to stay. But I realized that is the wrong approach. I should not be trying to convince you of anything. You should have all the information and make your own choice." "What information?" "About me, my life, what being my wife would actually mean day to day." Xander took a breath. "I own 160 acres, most of it grazing land. The house is 2 bedrooms, a main room with the kitchen and sitting area, and a small loft I use for storage. There is a barn, a chicken coop, a smokehouse, and a root cellar. My foreman, Jake, and 2 ranch hands live in the bunkhouse about 50 yards from the main house. They are good men, respectful. You would be safe around them." Sophia listened, trying to picture it all. "The work is hard," Xander continued. I am usually up before dawn and do not come in until after dark. In calving season, I might be gone for days at a time, sleeping out on the range to watch the herd. In winter, I have to check the cattle constantly, make sure they are not freezing or starving. It is not a life of leisure. I do not expect leisure, Sophia said. I have worked since I was 14, sewing mostly, but also laundry and mending and whatever else would earn a few coins. I am not afraid of hard work. Good, because there is plenty of it. Cooking for the hands, keeping the house, tending the garden and chickens, preserving food for winter. It is different from city work, though, more isolated. Westcliff is the nearest town, and it is a 2-hour ride in good weather. In winter, you could be snowed in for weeks at a time with no company but me. That does sound lonely, Sophia admitted. It can be, Xander agreed. That is part of why I wanted a wife, but I want to be honest about what you would be signing up for. This is not Boston. There are no theaters or shops on every corner, no crowds of people. The nearest neighbor is 3 miles away. If you need help, you might be on your own for hours before anyone can reach you. You are not making a very good case for staying, Sophia said, a hint of humor in her voice. Xander smiled slightly. I suppose not, but like I said, I want you to choose with your eyes open. He paused, considering. There are good parts too, though. The land is beautiful, more beautiful than anything I can describe. The silence is peaceful once you get used to it. The stars at night, the sunrise over the mountains, the way the aspens turn gold in autumn. It gets into your blood after a while. You love it there. I do. It is mine, built with my own hands and sweat. Every fence post, every stone in the fireplace, every board in the house. I know every inch of that land, every draw and hollow. It is home in a way nothing else has ever been. Sophia could hear the passion in his voice, see it in his eyes. This was a man who knew what he wanted, who had built a life with purpose and care. It was attractive in a way she had not anticipated. And where would I fit in that life? Assuming I stayed, I mean. Wherever you wanted to fit, Xander said. I know that is not a satisfying answer. You want specifics, and I do not have many because I have never been married before. I do not know exactly how it would work, but I can tell you what I hoped for when I sent that advertisement. Tell me. I hoped for a partner, someone to build a life with, not just someone to keep house while I work. I hoped for conversation at dinner, for someone to share the small moments with. The first snow, the first calf of the season, a good sunset. I hoped for someone who would make that house feel less empty. He met her eyes. And yes, I hoped for affection eventually, maybe love if we were lucky. But I meant what I said last night. I would not expect anything you were not ready to give. We could have separate rooms, could take as much time as you needed to feel comfortable. That is not how most marriages work, Sophia said. Most men would expect their rights immediately. I am not most men. And honestly, the idea of bedding a woman who did not want me there is repulsive. I would rather be celibate forever than force myself on someone. Sophia believed him. She could see the sincerity in his face, hear it in his voice. What if I never wanted that? What if we stayed in separate rooms forever? Xander was quiet for a long moment. I will not lie and say that would not be hard. But if that was the price of your companionship, of having you there to talk to and share life with, I think I could accept it. Not happily, maybe, but I could accept it. You deserve better than that. Maybe, but I also know you cannot force feelings. Either they grow or they do not. He leaned back in his chair. So here is what I propose. Stay for a month. Not as my wife, not yet. As a guest or a potential wife or whatever you want to call it. I will move to the bunkhouse with the men. You can have the house to yourself. See what the life is actually like. At the end of the month, if you want to leave, I will pay your passage wherever you want to go. But if you decide to stay, We will get married properly and try to build something real together." "A month," Sophia repeated, considering. It was more than fair, more than generous. It gave her time to be sure without the pressure of immediate marriage. And if she was honest with herself, the thought of returning to Boston held little appeal. There was nothing there for her anymore, just memories of her mother's slow death and her own struggles to survive. At least here, there was possibility. "And you would really move to the bunkhouse?" "Give up your own home. It is just a building. You cannot be comfortable with me there if you are still deciding, and my foreman will probably appreciate having someone to boss around more directly." Xander smiled slightly. "Jake has been trying to reform my ways for years. Thinks I stay up too late reading and do not eat enough vegetables." Sophia found herself smiling back. "You raid? Is that surprising?" "A little. I thought ranchers spent all their time with cattle and horses. Most of us do, but my mother was a school teacher before she married my father. She taught me to love books. I have maybe 30 of them at the house. Not much compared to what you probably had in Boston, but they are well loved." He paused. "What do you say, Sophia? Will you give me a month? Give us a month." Sophia looked at this man, this stranger who had saved her life, and was now offering her freedom and time and patience. Every practical instinct said yes. She had nowhere else to go, no other options. But beyond practicality, beyond desperation, something in her wanted to say yes. Wanted to see if the man in the letters and the man sitting across from her were really the same person. Wanted to know if those feelings she had glimpsed before the fear took over were real or just imagination. "Yes," she said quietly. "I will stay for a month." The relief on Xander's face was unmistakable. "Thank you. You will not regret it, I promise." "I hope you will not regret it either. I am not very good with animals, and I have never cooked on a wood stove. I will probably ruin your kitchen within a week." "The kitchen has survived me for 6 years. It can survive anything." Xander stood, putting his hat back on. "I need to get back to the ranch, make sure the cattle weathered the storm all right, but I will send Jake into town this afternoon with a wagon. He can bring you out when the doctor says you are well enough to travel. Today, if you are up for it. No point in waiting, is there? Unless you need time to prepare yourself." "I do not have anything to prepare," Sophia said with a slightly hysterical laugh. "Everything I own is either in my trunk, which I left at the train station, or ruined by yesterday's adventure. I am as ready as I will ever be. Jake will collect your trunk then too." Xander hesitated, then added, "I am glad you are staying. Even if it is only for a month, even if you decide to leave at the end of it. I am glad for the chance to know you properly." After he left, Sophia sat in the kitchen for a long time, staring at her hands. They were rough from years of needlework, not smooth and soft like a lady's hands should be. But they were capable hands, strong hands. They had gotten her this far. Maybe they would carry her through whatever came next too. Dr. Emmett pronounced her well enough to travel that afternoon, though he cautioned her to stay warm and rest as much as possible for the next few days. "No more running off into blizzards," he said sternly. "I promise," Sophia said, meaning it. She had learned that lesson thoroughly. Jake arrived just after noon, a weathered man in his 50s with a grizzled beard and kind eyes. He helped her into the wagon with surprising gentleness. "Heard you gave Xander quite a scare yesterday," he said as they started toward the ranch. "I made a very foolish mistake," Sophia said. "One I am lucky to have survived." "Well, that you did, and caused Xander more excitement than he has had in years. The man leads a dull life most of the time." "Mostly just cows and horses and more cows." Jake glanced at her. "He is a good man, though, best I have ever worked for. Fair, honest, works harder than any of us. If you are worried about that, you can put your mind at ease." "Thank you," Sophia said. "That is good to know." The boys and I will stay out of your way best we can. Xander said you would be staying in the main house alone for a bit. We will be respectful. Any trouble from anyone, you just let Xander know. He will handle it. The ride to the ranch took just over an hour, the road winding through foothills dotted with pine and juniper. As they crested a final rise, Jake pointed ahead. There she is, the Harrison Ranch. Sophia looked and felt her breath catch. The house was not large, but it sat nestled in a small valley with a creek running nearby, mountains rising dramatic and snow covered on all sides. The setting sun painted the peaks in shades of pink and gold. It was, she had to admit, spectacular. The house itself was solid and well built, logs chinked with white mortar, a stone chimney rising from one end. Smoke curled from it, welcoming. The barn was large and well maintained, the corrals sturdy. Everything spoke of care and pride in ownership. Xander emerged from the barn as they pulled up, wiping his hands on his trousers. Good timing. I just finished the evening feeding. He helped Sophia down from the wagon with the same care Dr. Emmett had used, as if she were fragile and might break. It should have annoyed her, but instead she found it rather sweet. "Thank you," she murmured. "Let me show you around," Xander said. He grabbed her trunk from the wagon and carried it easily, leading her toward the house. The main door opened into a large room that served as both kitchen and living area. A fire burned in the stone fireplace, and the space was warm and inviting. The furniture was simple but well made, clearly built by hand. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with the promised books. A large table dominated the kitchen area, and a cook stove sat ready for use. "This is the heart of the house," Xander said. "You will spend most of your time here, I expect." He led her to one of two doors off the main room. "This is the main bedroom. I have changed the sheets and cleaned everything. The bed is comfortable. I built it myself with pine from the property." The room was simple but pleasant, with a large bed covered in a colorful quilt, a wardrobe, a washstand, and a window that looked out toward the mountains. "It is lovely," Sophia said honestly. "The other bedroom is smaller. I will collect my things from there later and move them to the bunkhouse." Xander set her trunk at the foot of the bed. "The necessary is out back, about 20 yards. I know it is not like having indoor plumbing like in Boston, but it is clean and private." "I have used worse," Sophia assured him. Her apartment in Boston had shared facilities with 3 other families. There is a well with good water right outside the kitchen door. The root cellar is stocked with vegetables and preserved foods from last fall. The chickens should give you eggs every morning. Just watch out for the rooster. He can be temperamental." "Noted," Sophia said with a small smile. Xander showed her where everything was: the woodpile for the stove, the smokehouse with salt pork and bacon, the pantry with flour and sugar and coffee. He was thorough and patient, making sure she knew where to find anything she might need. Finally, he ran out of things to show her and just stood awkwardly in the main room. "I should go," he said. "Let you settle in. I will be in the bunkhouse if you need anything. Just ring the bell on the porch. Any of us will come running." "Xander," Sophia said, stopping him as he turned to leave. "Thank you for all of this, for giving me time, for being understanding about yesterday. Not many men would be so generous." "You are worth being generous with," Xander said simply. Then, before she could respond, he was out the door, striding across the yard to the bunkhouse. Sophia stood alone in the house, listening to the crackle of the fire and the distant lowing of cattle. This was her home now, at least for a month. Maybe longer if things went well. The thought was not as terrifying as it had been yesterday. In fact, as she looked around the warm, cozy space, she felt something like anticipation stirring in her chest. The first week passed in a blur of learning and adjustment. Sophia discovered that cooking on a wood stove was indeed different from the gas range she had used at her last boarding house, and she burned dinner twice before getting the hang of the temperature. She learned to gather eggs while avoiding the aggressive rooster, whom she named Napoleon for his small size and large attitude. She learned which paths led where, memorizing the layout of the ranch. Xander kept his distance, true to his word. She saw him mainly at dinner, which he came to the house for each evening. The first few meals were awkward, both of them struggling for conversation. But gradually they relaxed, falling into the pattern they had established in their letters. They talked about books, about the weather, about Sophia's life in Boston and Xander's childhood moving from place to place before his father had finally settled in Colorado. "He was not a good man," Xander said one evening, his voice carefully neutral. "He drank, had a temper. Hit my mother more than once, hit me more than that. She died when I was 15. Pneumonia, the doctor said, but I think she was just tired of fighting, tired of being afraid all the time." "I am sorry," Sophia said quietly. "My father was a drunk too. He left when I was 10. I used to think it was my fault somehow, that if I had been better or quieter or somehow different, he would have stayed. My mother said it had nothing to do with me, but I still wondered." "It was not your fault," Xander said firmly. "Men like that, they are broken inside. Nothing you could have done would have fixed that. I know that now. But 10-year-old me did not. 15-year-old me did not either. I thought if I had been stronger, man enough, I could have protected my mother. Took me years to understand that I was just a kid, and it was not my job to fix my father's failings." They sat in silence after that, a comfortable silence that came from shared understanding. Both of them had been hurt by weak, cruel men. Both had survived and built lives from the rubble. It was a foundation of sorts, painful but solid. The second week, Sophia began to venture further from the house. She walked the property, learning the land as Xander had suggested. She found the creek he had mentioned, frozen now but beautiful, winding through a small canyon. She found a stand of aspens that would be lovely in fall. She climbed a small hill behind the house and sat watching the sunset, understanding why Xander loved this place. There was a peace here, a silence that was not empty but rather full of wind and bird song and the distant sounds of cattle. One afternoon, while exploring, she slipped on ice-covered rocks and twisted her ankle. It was not serious, but it hurt enough that she could not walk easily. She sat for a moment, frustrated with herself, then remembered the bell Xander had mentioned. She hobbled back to the house and rang it, feeling foolish. Xander appeared within minutes, running from wherever he had been working. "What is wrong? Are you hurt?" "I am fine," Sophia said quickly, seeing the alarm on his face. "I just twisted my ankle. I feel silly for ringing the bell, but I could not put weight on it. Never feel silly for that. That is what it is for." Without asking, he scooped her up and carried her inside, setting her gently on a chair. He knelt and carefully removed her boot, his large hands surprisingly gentle as he examined her ankle. "It is swelling. Not broken, I think, just sprained. We need to keep ice on it." He went outside and returned with a cloth filled with snow, which he wrapped around her ankle. "Keep this on for 20 minutes, then off for 20. Alternate through the evening. By morning it should feel better." "You know a lot about injuries," Sophia observed. "You cannot work a ranch without learning basic doctoring, animals and people both." Xander stood but did not leave. "How did it happen?" "I was exploring, not watching where I stepped. The rocks by the creek are slippery." "They are. I should have warned you." He paused. "I am glad you are exploring, though, getting to know the place." "It is beautiful here," Sophia said. "Different from anything I have known, but beautiful. I found the aspens today. You are right that they must be lovely in autumn." "They are. The whole hillside turns gold. It is like the mountain is on fire, but a good fire, a warm one. Xander hesitated, then added, "Maybe you will still be here to see it." "Maybe," Sophia said, and she was surprised to realize she hoped so. The month was half over, and while she had not made a final decision, she was leaning toward staying. Life here was hard in ways she had not anticipated, but it was also peaceful in ways she had not expected. And Xander's daily presence was becoming something she looked forward to rather than dreaded. He was easy to be around once she got past her initial fear. He did not expect constant conversation, was content with comfortable silence. He was patient with her mistakes, never mocking when she burned dinner or forgot to close the chicken coop and had to chase hens all over the yard. He fixed things without being asked, noticing when a door stuck or a window leaked cold air. He left wildflowers on the table sometimes, simple prairie blooms that brightened the room. Small kindnesses, all of them, but they accumulated. Sophia found herself noticing things about him too. The way he was gentle with the animals, even when they were being difficult. The way he read by the fire in the evenings, his lips sometimes moving slightly as he followed the words. The way he always asked about her day at dinner, genuinely interested in her answers. The third week brought a warm spell, unseasonably mild for January. The snow melted in patches, revealing brown grass beneath. Xander decided to move some of the cattle to a further pasture, and he asked Sophia if she wanted to come along. "You do not have to," he said quickly. "I know you have never been around cattle much, but I thought you might enjoy seeing more of the property." Sophia was nervous about getting on a horse, having never ridden before, but she was also intrigued. "Will I not slow you down?" "No, I will put you on Daisy. She is old and steady, would not run if a bear chased her. You will be safe." So Sophia found herself on horseback for the first time, her hands clutching the saddle horn as Daisy plodded along beside Xander's copper. The other ranch hands, young men named Tom and Billy, drove the cattle ahead of them, whooping and whistling to keep the herd moving. "How are you doing?" Xander asked, glancing over at her. "Terrified," Sophia admitted, "but also exhilarated. I am on a horse. I never thought I would be on a horse." "You are doing great. Just relax, move with her. Daisy knows what to do." They rode for over an hour, climbing into the hills. The view from the high pasture was breathtaking, the valley spread below them, the mountains rising all around. Sophia understood in that moment what Xander had tried to explain in his letters. This land was fierce and beautiful, demanding but rewarding. It was easy to love. "Thank you for bringing me," she said. "I know it would have been easier without me along." "Easier," Xander agreed, "but not better. I like having you here. I like showing you things, seeing your reaction. It makes me see the place fresh again through new eyes." "I can see why you love it," Sophia said. "It is harsh, but there is a grandeur to it, a kind of terrible beauty." "That is exactly it," Xander said, pleased. "You understand." On the ride back, Sophia's fear had faded enough that she could actually enjoy the rhythm of the horse's movement, the creak of leather, the vast sky overhead. When they reached the ranch, Xander helped her down, his hands on her waist steadying her as her legs, unaccustomed to riding, wobbled slightly. "Thank you," she said, looking up at him. He was close, closer than he had been in weeks. She could see gold flecks in his brown eyes, could see the faint scar on his chin. Something passed between them, a current of awareness that made her breath catch. Xander stepped back quickly, releasing her. "You did well today. Natural horsewoman." "Hardly," Sophia said, laughing to cover the sudden tension. "But I enjoyed it." That night at dinner, the conversation flowed more easily than ever. They talked about everything and nothing, laughing together over a story Xander told about a calf who thought it was a dog and followed him everywhere. Sophia told him about learning to sew, about her first dress that had the sleeves sewn on backwards. The ease between them felt natural now, comfortable in a way that friendship could be, but with an undercurrent of something more. After Xander left, Sophia sat by the fire thinking. 3 more weeks and her month would be up. She needed to decide soon, stay or go, marry or leave. The answer, she realized, had already formed in her heart. She wanted to stay. Not because she had no other options, not because it was practical, but because she was happy here. Happier than she had been in years, maybe ever. The work was hard, but it was satisfying. The isolation was real, but it was peaceful rather than lonely. And Xander was kind and patient and good. She could build a life with him. She could see herself sitting by this fire in 10 years, 20, a lifetime. The thought did not terrify her anymore. The 4th week of the month began with catastrophe. Sophia woke to the sound of frantic lowing and ran outside to find several cattle had broken through a fence during the night and were scattered across the property. Xander and his men were already trying to round them up, but it was chaos. "Stay inside," Xander called to her as he rode past. "It is too dangerous out here." But one of the calves had separated from its mother and was heading toward the creek, bawling piteously. Without thinking, Sophia went after it, trying to shoo it back toward the barn. The calf was stubborn, ducking around her, heading for the frozen creek. Sophia followed, not thinking about the ice, about the danger. The ice broke beneath her weight with a crack that sounded like a gunshot. The water was shockingly cold, stealing her breath, pulling her down. For a moment, she was back in the blizzard, freezing and terrified. But this time was worse because the water closed over her head and she could not breathe, could not scream. Strong hands grabbed her, hauling her up and out. Xander pulled her to solid ground, water streaming from both of them. "Are you hurt? Sophia, are you hurt?" "Just cold," she gasped. "So cold." He carried her to the house, shouting for Jake to get Dr. Emmett. Inside, he wrapped her in every blanket he could find, built up the fire until the room was sweltering. "Why did you go after that calf?" he asked, his voice rough with fear and anger. "I told you to stay inside. You could have died, you could have drowned." She was scared, Sophia said through chattering teeth. "The calf. She was scared and alone." "She is a cow," Xander said, though his voice had softened, "not worth your life." "Everything is worth something," Sophia said. "You taught me that, the way you care for the animals, the land. Nothing is worthless." Xander sat back, looking at her. "You scared me. When I saw you go under the ice, I thought I had lost you. But you saved me. Again." "I seem to be making a habit of that. Maybe you should stop putting yourself in danger." "Maybe," Sophia agreed, starting to smile. "Though you have to admit, life is not dull." Despite his worry, Xander laughed. "No, dull is not a word I would use to describe the past month." Dr. Emmett arrived an hour later and checked Sophia thoroughly. "No frostbite this time, thank God, but you need to rest and stay warm. No more adventures for a while, young lady." "I promise," Sophia said, meaning it. After the doctor left, Xander lingered. "Your month is almost up," he said quietly. 3 more days and you are free to leave if you want. I have not asked, have not wanted to pressure you, but I need to know your decision. I need to know if you are staying or going." Sophia looked at him, this man who had saved her life twice now, who had been patient and kind and given her the space to find her own answers. "I am staying," she said. "If the offer is still open, I want to stay. I want to marry you and build a life here." The relief on his face was profound. "You are sure? You are not just saying that because you fell in the creek and feel obligated?" "I am sure. I was sure before the creek. I was going to tell you at the end of the week, make it official. But yes, I am sure. I want this life. I want to be here. And I want to be your wife." Xander crossed to her, kneeling beside her chair. "I will be a good husband to you, Sophia. I will work every day to make you happy, to make you glad you stayed. I swear it." "I know you will," Sophia said. She reached out, touching his face, feeling the scratch of his beard, the warmth of his skin. "And I will work to be a good wife to you, to be a partner like you said, to build something real together." He leaned into her touch, his eyes closing briefly. When he opened them, there was something new there, something warm and tender. "Can I kiss you?" Sophia's heart was pounding, but it was not fear. It was anticipation, excitement, the beginning of something she had not dared to hope for. "Yes." The kiss was gentle, tentative, like they were both learning a new language. His lips were soft despite the rough life he led, and he tasted like coffee and something uniquely him. Sophia found herself leaning into the kiss, wanting more, her hand sliding from his face to the back of his neck. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard. "Wow," Sophia said softly. "Yeah," Xander agreed, his voice rough. "Wow." They were married 3 days later in the small church in Westcliff, with Dr. and Mrs. Emmett as witnesses and half the town in attendance. Sophia wore a simple dress Mrs. Emmett had helped her make from fabric ordered from the general store. Xander wore his best suit, his hair slicked back, looking nervous and happy in equal measure. The ceremony was short, the words traditional. But when Xander said, "I do," his voice was strong and sure. And when Sophia repeated the words, she meant them with her whole heart. This was her choice, freely made. This was her future, bright with possibility. The kiss after the ceremony was longer than propriety probably allowed, but no one seemed to mind. When they finally pulled apart, the small congregation cheered. Jake clapped Xander on the back. Mrs. Emmett hugged Sophia and whispered, "Be happy, dear." "I will," Sophia promised. "I am." The wedding night was less awkward than Sophia had feared. They returned to the ranch in the late afternoon, the winter sun already setting. Xander had moved his belongings back into the main house that morning, back into the main bedroom. Their bedroom now. He was patient, letting her set the pace. They sat by the fire after dinner, talking softly about nothing important. When it grew late, he took her hand. "We do not have to do anything tonight if you are not ready. I meant what I said about separate rooms if you needed more time." "I do not need more time," Sophia said, surprising herself with her certainty. "I want this. I want you." What followed was tender and sweet, Xander careful to make sure she was comfortable, that she wanted each touch, each kiss. There was fumbling and laughter along with the passion, the inevitable awkwardness of two people learning each other for the first time. But there was also wonder, discovery, the profound intimacy of complete trust. Afterward, lying in his arms, Sophia felt a peace she had never known. This was home, not just the house or the land, but this man, this moment. This was where she belonged. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. She felt Xander go still, then his arms tightened around her. "I love you too. I did not think I would fall this hard, this fast. But I love you, Sophia. More than I thought possible." They fell asleep tangled together, warm and content despite the winter wind howling outside. The months that followed were not always easy. Marriage required adjustment, compromise, learning to live with another person's habits and quirks. Xander snored, and Sophia was grumpy in the mornings before her coffee. He was obsessively neat, and she tended to leave things scattered. But they learned each other, adapted, found rhythms that worked. Spring brought calving season, and Sophia discovered she had a gift for it. She was good with the newborn calves, patient with the difficult births, unafraid of the blood and mess. Xander watched her help deliver a breech calf, her arms covered in birth fluids, her face set in concentration, and fell in love with her all over again. Summer was glorious, the land green and lush, the days long and warm. They rode together often, Sophia growing confident on horseback. She learned to rope, to doctor sick animals, to read the weather. She planted a garden that flourished, providing fresh vegetables all season. She made friends with the neighboring ranchers' wives, finding community she had not expected. Autumn brought the gold aspens Xander had promised, and Sophia understood why he loved them so much. The whole mountainside glowed like something from a dream. They rode up to see them together, sitting on a blanket and watching the leaves shimmer in the breeze. "I am glad you stayed," Xander said, his arm around her shoulders. "So am I," Sophia said. "I cannot imagine being anywhere else now. No regrets. About leaving Boston, about marrying me." "Not a single one." Winter returned, but this time Sophia was prepared. She knew how to layer clothes, how to keep the fire going, how to preserve food and stay warm. She was not afraid of the snow now. It was beautiful, not threatening. And when storms came, she was safe and warm inside with Xander, reading by the fire or playing cards or just talking about everything and nothing. It was during one of those quiet winter evenings that Sophia realized her monthly courses were late. She said nothing at first, not wanting to get Xander's hopes up in case she was wrong. But when 2 months passed with no sign of bleeding, she could not keep silent any longer. "Xander," she said one night at dinner, "I think I might be with child." He went very still, his fork frozen halfway to his mouth. "You think?" "I am almost certain. I have not bled since November, and I have been feeling sick in the mornings, though it is getting better now." Xander set down his fork carefully, as if his hands were shaking and he needed to control them. "We are going to have a baby. Yes, if everything goes well, by late summer, I think." He was around the table in seconds, pulling her up and into his arms, spinning her around. "We are going to have a baby. Sophia, we are going to be parents," she laughed, holding on to him. "Careful, you will make me dizzy." He set her down but kept his arms around her, his face split in the biggest smile she had ever seen. "I am going to be a father, I never thought. I hoped, but I did not dare assume." "You will be a wonderful father," Sophia said, touching his face. "Patient and kind and strong. Our child will be so lucky." "Our child," Xander repeated like he was testing the words. "I like the sound of that." The pregnancy was not easy. Sophia was sick for months, barely able to keep food down. Xander hovered, worried and helpless, doing everything he could to help. He took over the cooking, brought her ginger tea, sat with her during the worst bouts of nausea. As her belly grew, he became even more protective, insisting she not lift anything heavy, not ride horses, not work too hard. "I am pregnant, not dying," Sophia told him, exasperated but also touched by his concern. "I know, but humor me. I have never done this before. Neither have I. Then we will figure it out together, like everything else." Mrs. Emmett came to stay with them in August as Sophia's time drew near. The older woman was a steady presence, teaching Sophia what to expect, preparing supplies for the birth. Dr. Emmett visited weekly, checking on both mother and baby, pronouncing everything normal and healthy. The labor started on a hot August afternoon, slow contractions that gradually increased in intensity and frequency. Sophia walked, paced, tried to stay calm despite the growing pain. Xander was beside himself, pale and shaking, feeling helpless. "Go check the fences or something," Mrs. Emmett told him firmly. "You are making her nervous with all your hovering." "I want to stay," Xander said. "I want to be here." "Then sit in the corner and be quiet, Mrs. Emmett said, not unkindly. "And try not to faint. I have enough to do without tending to you too." The labor lasted through the night and into the next morning. It was hard, painful, frightening at times. But when the baby finally came, a healthy boy with strong lungs and a thick head of dark hair, it all became worth it. "You have a son," Dr. Emmett said, placing the screaming infant on Sophia's chest. A strong, healthy son. Sophia looked down at the tiny person, feeling overwhelmed with love so powerful it hurt. "Hello," she whispered. "Hello, little one, I am your mother." Xander was crying openly, tears streaming down his face as he touched the baby's tiny hand. "He is perfect. Sophia, he is perfect." "What should we name him?" Sophia asked. They had discussed names but never decided. Now, looking at the baby, Xander said, "Thomas, after my mother's father. He was a good man, one of the few in my family, Tom for short." "Thomas Harrison," Sophia said, trying it out. "I like it. Hello, Thomas. Welcome to the world." Baby Tom was a good child, rarely fussy, sleeping well after the first difficult weeks. He had his mother's eyes and his father's stubborn chin. Xander was a devoted father, getting up for night feedings even though Sophia was nursing, just to be there, to help change diapers and walk the floor when Tom was restless. "I never want him to be afraid of me," Xander said one night, holding his sleeping son. "I never want him to flinch when I raise my voice or wonder if I will hit him. I want him to know he is loved every day of his life." "He will," Sophia assured him. "You are nothing like your father, nothing at all." Tom grew quickly, a happy baby who became a curious toddler. He learned to walk holding his father's hands, learned to talk babbling about Papa and Mama and cow. He had Xander's love for the land, even as a small child, always wanting to be outside, always exploring. When Tom was 2, Sophia became pregnant again. This time the sickness was less severe, and she carried the baby with more confidence. Their daughter, Emma, was born on a snowy December morning, exactly 4 years after Sophia had arrived in Westcliff and run into that first blizzard. "Fitting," Xander said, holding his newborn daughter. "A snow baby, born on an anniversary of sorts. Let us hope she has better sense than to run off into storms," Sophia said, exhausted but happy. Emma was different from Tom, fussier as a baby but ultimately sweet-natured and gentle. She had her father's brown eyes and her mother's dark hair. Where Tom was all energy and action, Emma was thoughtful and quiet, content to sit and watch the world around her. The years passed in a blur of happy chaos. Tom started helping his father around the ranch as soon as he was big enough to carry a bucket, eager to be useful. Emma followed her mother everywhere, learning to cook and sew and tend the garden. They added more cattle, expanded the house with 2 more bedrooms and a larger kitchen. Jake retired, and Tom, now 16, became the foreman, much to his pride. More children came, another son named Daniel and a final daughter named Grace. The house was full of noise and laughter, of arguments and tears and reconciliation. Life was messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Xander and Sophia took a rare day away from the ranch, riding up to the aspen grove they had visited so long ago. The leaves were gold again, shimmering in the autumn sun. "Can you believe it has been 20 years?" Sophia asked, leaning against Xander's shoulder as they sat on a blanket, the same one they had used 2 decades before. "Some days it feels like yesterday, others like a lifetime." Xander kissed the top of her head. "But every day has been worth it, even the hard ones." "Especially the hard ones," Sophia said. "They taught us how strong we are together." "You ever think about what would have happened if you had not come back? If you had made it further into that storm and I had not found you?" "Sometimes," Sophia admitted, "but not with regret. More with gratitude that it did not happen that way, that I got this life instead of whatever else might have been. I am grateful too. Every single day, I am grateful you took a chance on a lonely rancher with a cattle ranch and too many rough edges." Sophia turned to look at him. This man she had been so afraid of meeting, this man she now loved more than life itself. The years had added gray to his hair and lines to his face, but to her, he was as handsome as ever. More so because she knew his heart now, knew the goodness and strength and love that lived inside him. "You were never rough," she said. "You were kind from the very beginning. I was just too scared to see it. And you were brave from the beginning. I was just too dense to recognize it." He kissed her, slow and sweet, the kiss of two people who had spent 20 years learning each other and still found new things to discover. They rode back to the ranch as the sun was setting, the sky painted in shades of pink and gold. The house was lit from within, warm light spilling from the windows. Sophia could see figures moving inside, their children and grandchildren, because Tom had married last year and already had a baby on the way. "Look at what we built," Xander said softly, stopping Copper on the rise above the house. "Not just the buildings, but the family, the life." "We built it together," Sophia said. "From fear and desperation and a mail order advertisement, we built something real and good and lasting." They rode down to the house hand in hand, ready to rejoin the chaos and love of their large, loud family. Ready for whatever the future might bring, because they would face it together, as they had faced everything else for 20 years. Sophia thought back to that terrified girl running through the snow, certain she had made a terrible mistake. How wrong she had been. Coming to Colorado, answering that advertisement, it had not been a mistake. It had been the best decision of her life. It had been the beginning of everything that mattered. Inside the house, their family waited. Tom was teaching little Grace to play the piano Xander had bought last year. Emma was arguing with Daniel about whose turn it was to set the table. The noise was loud, chaotic, wonderful. Home in every sense of the word. "Ready?" Xander asked before they went inside. "Always," Sophia said. "As long as I am with you, I am always ready." They walked into the house together, into the warmth and light and love they had built from nothing but hope and determination, and a willingness to take a chance on each other. It had not always been easy. There had been struggles and setbacks, fears and failures. But through it all, they had each other. And that, Sophia thought as Xander's arm came around her waist and their children swarmed them with hugs and questions and demands for attention, that was everything. That night, lying in bed, Sophia listened to the house settling around them, the familiar creaks and sighs of a home well lived in. Xander was already asleep beside her, his breathing deep and even. She touched his face gently, tracing the lines time had carved there, loving every one of them. "Thank you," she whispered, though he could not hear. "Thank you for chasing me through the snow. Thank you for saying please do not go. Thank you for giving me time to find my courage. Thank you for loving me." Outside, snow began to fall, the first of the season. It drifted down soft and quiet, covering the ranch in white. But inside, all was warm and safe and good. Sophia closed her eyes and slept, content in the knowledge that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The years continued to pass, bringing changes both great and small. Tom's wife, Sarah, gave birth to twin boys, making Xander and Sophia grandparents twice over. Emma married a doctor who had opened a practice in Westcliff, a kind young man who adored her. Daniel took over more of the ranch operations as Xander's joints began to ache in cold weather, though the older man refused to retire completely. "I will die with my boots on," Xander said stubbornly when Sophia suggested he slow down. "This ranch is in my blood." "I am not asking you to stop," Sophia said patiently, "just to ease up a bit. Let the boys handle more. You have earned some rest." "I rest plenty, every night when I sleep beside you." Sophia rolled her eyes but smiled. Even after all these years, he could still make her feel young and loved with a simple word or look. The passion between them had never faded, though it had changed, deepened into something richer than those first urgent nights of discovery. Now their intimacy was comfortable, familiar, but no less meaningful. They knew each other's bodies as well as their own, knew how to give and receive pleasure, knew the profound contentment that came from complete trust and love. Grace, their youngest, showed no interest in settling down despite being 18 now. She was wild in the best way, fascinated by horses and determined to breed and train them. Xander built her a training corral and barn, indulging his baby girl shamelessly. "You spoil her," Sophia told him. "She is the last one," Xander said. "Let me enjoy her while I can. She is not going anywhere. She loves this ranch as much as you do, I know, but they all grow up eventually, all leave in one way or another. I just want to hold on to them as long as possible." Sophia understood. She felt it too, the bittersweet ache of watching their children become adults, build their own lives. She was proud of them all, proud of the people they had become. But part of her missed the days when they were small, when her arms were enough to comfort them, when her love was their whole world. On their 30th anniversary, the whole family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. All 4 children were there with their respective spouses and children. The house was packed with people, 3 generations of Harrisons, loud and chaotic and wonderful. After dinner, Tom stood and raised his glass. "To my parents," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "2 people who built something extraordinary out of nothing but determination and love. You taught us what it means to be strong, to be kind, to work hard and love harder. Everything we are, everything we have, we owe to you. So here is to 30 more years." "Hear, hear," the room chorused, glasses clinking. Sophia looked at Xander, seeing her own tears reflected in his eyes. "We did good," she whispered. "We did great," he corrected, pulling her close. "We did amazing." That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Sophia and Xander sat on the porch despite the cold, wrapped in blankets and watching the stars. The sky was clear and vast, the Milky Way a river of light overhead. "You remember our wedding night?" Xander asked. "When you told me you loved me for the first time?" "Of course I do. You said it back so fast, like you had been waiting to say it forever." "I had been. From the moment I read your first letter, I think I started falling in love with you. The real you, not just the idea of a wife. You had such heart in your words, such strength and vulnerability mixed together. I knew then that if you came, if you gave me a chance, I would love you for the rest of my life." "I loved you sooner than I admitted," Sophia confessed. "I was in love with you before the month was up, maybe before 2 weeks were up. But I was afraid to say it, afraid it was too fast, too intense." "Nothing between us has ever been slow or easy," Xander said with a laugh. "Why should love be any different? True. We have always done things our own way." They sat in comfortable silence, holding hands, just being together. After 30 years of marriage, words were often unnecessary. They could communicate in glances and touches, in the simple presence of each other. "Sophia," Xander said eventually, "if you could go back, knowing everything you know now, would you still run into that storm? Would you still try to escape?" Sophia thought about it, really considered it. "Yes," she said finally, "because running led to you chasing me. It led to that conversation in Dr. Emmett's house, to you offering me time and choice and freedom. If I had not run, if I had just gone through with the wedding out of obligation, we might never have had that foundation of honesty and respect. The fear and the running, as terrible as it was, led us to the truth of each other. So yes, I would run, because it brought me home to you." Xander kissed her, deep and long, tasting of coffee and the peppermint candy he had been eating. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "I would chase you through 1,000 storms," Sophia Harrison, through snow and rain and whatever else. I would always chase you, and I would always say, please do not go. Good thing you do not have to, Sophia said, because I am never leaving. You are stuck with me forever. Forever is not nearly long enough. They went inside eventually, cold and tired but happy. The house was quiet now, everyone asleep. They moved through it like ghosts, checking on children and grandchildren out of habit, making sure everyone was comfortable and safe. The protective instinct never faded. No matter how old their children got, in their room, they undressed for bed, movements synchronized after so many years. Sophia caught sight of herself in the mirror, seeing the gray in her hair, the lines on her face, the way her body had changed after bearing 4 children. She was not the young woman who had arrived in Westcliff 30 years ago, scared and desperate. You are even more beautiful now, Xander said, reading her thoughts as he often did. He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Age looks good on you. You are biased. I am honest. You are beautiful, Sophia. More beautiful than the day I married you, because now when I look at you, I see everything we have been through together. I see our life written on your face, and it is the best story I have ever read. Sophia turned in his arms, kissing him with all the love and passion and gratitude she felt. They made love slowly, tenderly, not with the urgency of youth, but with the deep knowledge of 2 people who had learned each other completely over 3 decades. It was sweet and powerful and perfect. Afterward, lying tangled together, Sophia said, I used to think love was a luxury I could not afford, that it was something for wealthy people with time and resources for romance. I thought marriage was just a practical arrangement, a way to survive. And now I know love is what makes survival worthwhile. Love is what turns a house into a home, work into purpose, life into something meaningful. We built this on love, Xander. Everything we have, everything we are, it is built on love. And hard work, Xander added with a smile. And luck. And stubbornness. And love, Sophia insisted. Mostly love. Mostly love, he agreed, pulling her closer. Always love. They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other and in the certainty of their bond. Outside, the wind picked up, whistling around the corners of the house. But inside, all was warm and safe and good. The house Xander had built with his own hands had become a home, filled with the laughter and tears and daily chaos of a large, loving family. It was everything he had dreamed of when he sent that advertisement so many years ago. More than he had dreamed of, because dreams could not capture the reality of Sophia's love, the depth and strength and constancy of it. The seasons turned as they always did. Spring came, bringing new calves and fresh growth. Summer blazed hot and golden. Autumn painted the mountains in fire. Winter blanketed everything in white. And through it all, Xander and Sophia were together, facing each season as partners, as lovers, as best friends. They grew older, their children grew up, grandchildren were born and grew in turn. Life went on, beautiful and hard and utterly worthwhile. Years later, when Sophia was 70 and Xander 72, they took one last ride up to the Aspen Grove. It was difficult for both of them now, their bodies aged and aching. But they wanted to see it one more time together, the place that had become symbolic of their love. The aspens were gold again, brilliant against the blue sky. They sat on a blanket, the same one they had used for 50 years, and looked out over the valley. The ranch spread below them, expanded now, run by Tom and his sons, but still bearing the Harrison name. I have been thinking, Xander said, his voice weaker than it used to be but still steady. About that day you ran into the storm, about how close I came to losing you before I ever really had you. Why think about that now? Because I want to say thank you. Thank you for being scared enough to run but brave enough to come back. Thank you for giving me a month and then a lifetime. Thank you for loving me even when I did not deserve it. Thank you for every day, every moment, every breath we have shared." Sophia was crying now, tears rolling down her weathered cheeks. "I should thank you. You saved me in every way a person can be saved. You gave me a home, a family, a purpose. You gave me love I did not know existed. You saw past the fear to the person I could become, and you helped me become her." "We saved each other," Xander said, taking her hand. His grip was not as strong as it once was, but it was still sure, still steady. "We built each other, piece by piece, day by day. You made me better than I was, Sophia. You made me the man I always wanted to be." They sat in silence, holding hands, watching the aspens dance in the breeze. The afternoon sun was warm, the air crisp and clean. It was perfect, this moment, this place, this life. Neither spoke of the fact that these moments were growing more precious, more rare. Neither acknowledged the aches and pains, the way climbing onto the horses had taken longer, the way the ride had tired them more than it should. They simply were together, one last time in the place that meant so much to them. When they finally rode back to the ranch, the sun was setting, painting the sky in impossible colors. The house waited, warm and welcoming, full of family. Their children had come home without telling them, sensing somehow that they were needed. Tom met them at the barn, helping his father down from Copper with gentle hands. "Good ride?" he asked. "The best," Xander said. "The very best." That night, surrounded by their family, Sophia and Xander told the story one more time. The story of how they met, how she ran and he chased, how fear became love and desperation became hope. The grandchildren listened, rapt as they always did. This story was legend in the Harrison family, told and retold, the foundation myth of their existence. And then what happened? The youngest grandchild, barely 5 years old, asked. "After Grandpa said, 'Please do not go,' then I stayed," Sophia said, smiling at the child. "And we built a life. We built this ranch, this family, this love, and it has been the greatest adventure of my life. Better than running away." The child asked. "Much better," Sophia confirmed, "because the best adventures are the ones you face together with someone you love." Xander squeezed her hand, and in that gesture was 50 years of love, of shared joy and sorrow, of building and growing and becoming. They had done it together, every step of the way. And as Sophia looked around the room at all the faces, all the lives they had created and shaped, she felt a profound sense of completion. This was what she had run toward through that blizzard, even when she did not know it. This warmth, this love, this belonging. This was home. The years had given them everything they had ever hoped for and more. They had built a legacy not just of land and cattle, but of love and family and values passed down through generations. The Harrison name meant something in Westcliff now, meant honesty and hard work and deep, abiding love. It meant something because Xander and Sophia had made it mean something together. When Xander passed away quietly in his sleep 5 years later, Sophia grieved deeply but without regret. They had been given 55 years together, a lifetime of love and partnership. She missed him terribly, felt his absence like a missing limb, but she also felt his presence in everything around her. In the house he built, in the land he loved, in the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren they had created together. He was woven into the fabric of her life so completely that he could never truly be gone. Sophia lived 3 more years after Xander's death, staying in the ranch house with Tom and his family. She spent her days in the garden with the grandchildren, watching the sunset from the porch and remembering. She was not lonely, surrounded as she was by family. But she missed her partner, her other half, the man who had chased her through a blizzard and changed her life forever. On a snowy December evening, exactly 58 years after she had first arrived in Westcliff, Sophia died peacefully in her sleep. She was 90 years old. Her last thought was of Xander, of seeing him again, of being complete once more. The family buried her next to Xander on the hill overlooking the ranch, under the aspens they had loved so much. The headstone read simply, Sophia Easton Harrison, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother. She ran through the storm and found her home. At the funeral, Tom told the story one final time. The story of how his mother had been so afraid she ran into a blizzard, and how his father had loved her enough to chase her. How those two frightened, lonely people had found each other and built something extraordinary. How their love had created a family, a legacy, a story worth telling. They taught us what love means, Tom said, his voice breaking. Not the easy, romantic love of stories, but the real, hard, daily love that builds lives. They taught us to be brave, to take chances, to chase what matters even when it is hard. They taught us that home is not a place but a person, and family is the greatest treasure we can ever have. The wind picked up, stirring the aspen leaves. If you listened carefully, it almost sounded like laughter, like two voices joined together in joy. The snow fell soft and steady, covering the mountains in white. And on the hill, under the dancing aspens, Xander and Sophia Harrison rested together, their story complete, their love eternal. The ranch continued, passed down through generations. Tom's sons ran it, then their sons, each adding to the legacy while honoring the foundation Xander and Sophia had built. The house was expanded again, modernized but never fundamentally changed. The heart of it remained, that original structure Xander had built with his own hands, where he and Sophia had loved and fought and raised their children. It was preserved, protected, a sacred space holding the memory of where it all began. And on snowy December evenings, when the wind howled down from the mountains, the family would gather around the fire and tell the story. The story of Sophia Easton, who ran away in the snow, and Xander Harrison, who chased her and said, "Please do not go." The story of how fear became love, how desperation became hope, how two strangers became partners for life. It was a good story, a true story, a story worth remembering and passing down through the ages, because it was not just a story about one couple, one time, one place. It was a story about courage and second chances, about the power of patience and kindness, about how love can grow in the unlikeliest places, between the unlikeliest people, about how the best things in life often come from taking a risk, from being brave enough to stay when every instinct says run. It was a story about home, and how we find it in the most unexpected places. About how sometimes the thing we are running from is exactly what we need, if only we are brave enough to stop running and face it. About how the greatest love stories are not about perfect people finding each other, but about imperfect people choosing each other, day after day, year after year, building something beautiful from the broken pieces of their pasts. It was, in the end, a love story. And like all great love stories, it lived on long after the lovers were gone, inspiring and guiding those who came after. Xander and Sophia Harrison had built more than a ranch or a family. They had built a legacy of love that would endure for generations, a testament to the power of two hearts brave enough to take a chance on each other. And in the mountains of Colorado, where the aspen still turned gold each autumn and the snow still fell soft and white each winter, their love story continued to echo, a whispered promise on the wind. Chase what matters, love with courage, and never be afraid to say, "Please do not go," to the one who holds your heart.